Hey, there we are. I'm back home, and I'd say it feels great. It feels good to be home. I'll give you that much. Welcome to Talking Heads, everyone. Episode 375, your once-weekly live show for the latest in beer and tech news. I'm Jeff.
I'm Rett.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching on this Wednesday night or in podcast form over on Spotify or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. If you've never seen the show before, we talk beer, we talk tech, we talk games, pop culture, entertainment, sometimes some Star Trek. Oh, and they're saying they can't hear Rett. Hold on.
No, I was just messing with everybody. I couldn't help myself.
You all fell for it.
I was trying to see how accurately I could mouth stuff, and I'm really glad that Yakto fell for it. That makes me feel good.
You son of a... Every episode when we end the show, he goes, and he starts with, "Oh, I know." That's one of his tells that he's bullshit.
Yeah, I did that this time too.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
I'm Jeff. He's Rett. Spotify. We do drink beer. If you're also drinking with us, alcoholic or not, let us know in the chat. Maybe I'll call on you. Maybe I won't. If you want to donate to the show, super chats, always welcome. We'll read them on the air so long as they will not permanently demonetize the channel. And we're back on course. An even better way to help support the channel, though, head on over to craftcomputing.store. Check out some of our fantastic merch. We've got pint glasses that are designed and etched right here in-house on my own personal laser, including the bottom of them to make them nucleated pint glasses so your head constantly refreshes while you're drinking and helps keep your beer more gooder longer.
Gooder longer.
Also, obviously, we are launching the OpenViro Axe PoE. Head on over to openviro.com or visit the Crowd Supply page and subscribe to get updates on as soon as you can place a pre-order on that. That will be literally any day now. We're just trying to get through the last bit of logistical esoterra, financial and web page and everything else, but almost there. openviro.com. And another way you can help support the channel, because I've got lots of those, head on over to patreon.com/craftcomputing. $1 a month gets you exclusive access to my Discord server, where you can join the exclusive chat with all the hosts from Talking Heads and the awesome community that hangs out over there. Can I open my beer now?
Please.
Okay.
I told you, you can open it at any time. I already opened mine.
Oh, well, good for you.
And I've got a Polaner grapefruit Radler right now, so
Ooh.
I've been, yeah, it's good.
I do like a good Radler.
Yeah, it's low ABV. I think this is still like 4.5% or something, but
nice.
3.2, so it's pretty light. And then I've got an Imperial IPA on deck for when I'm done with this, but.
Sweet. Well, I've got a couple of Imperial IPAs tonight. We're starting with Elm Creek Brewing out of Chaplin, Minnesota. This is the 3 is a Party Hazy Triple IPA, clocking in at 10%.
It's a big boy.
Yes. We're going to have this one in the Nonic Code Rain glass. Available on craftcomputing.store. That's a pretty beer. I like that. And thank you, Novella Hub, for sending this one over. If you ever see a beer from Minnesota, 9 out of 10 chance it is from Novella Hub. They're in the chat as well as over on the Discord. Cool dude. Really good beer. Always appreciated. This one's been in my fridge for a little while, so I'm hoping it's pretty solid. I've had my eye on it for a couple of months now. I keep going, should I open this one tonight? And tonight was finally the night. Let's see. Michael's got a Founder's Mortal Bloom Imperial Thorn 8%, 3.83 over on Untapped. Let's see. Zach says, Craft, remind me to put Rhett's PDX LAN seat closest to the bathrooms for messing with my audio at the beginning.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to have to use it a lot.
Yes. Let's see. Harley's got a Wake Brewing Hand of Doom Stout, clocking in at 7.2%. Williams got a Vodka Collins. It's always a great, nice light cocktail. I like that. Let's see. Rev cracking into an astral projection into multiple galaxies. Equilibrium Brewing and Widowmaker collaboration. Double IPA. 8.5%. 4.19 on Untapped. As Nicolas Cage would say, that's high praise. Coffee and Cynicism, Magic City Brewing Company. A stout has no name. 8.2%. Also a 4.2 on Untapped. Jason's got a Goose Island. I'm assuming is that. Big Mango Beer Hug. Imperial IPA, 9.9%. Allison says, I'd send a super chat, but I just spent my spare money paying Yocto, as a lot of us end up doing. Let's see. Drinking some delicious sweet tea, 15% sugar by volume from Jack. Excellent. All right. Cheers, everyone. Oh, Nick's got a Beer Republic's Racer 5. And Gabe's got a Dos Equis Amber. Very nice. Green Nerd's got a water, because he's at work, 0.0%. That's still perfectly allowed, and encouraged, in fact. So, yeah. Awesome.
Woohoo.
Cheers, everyone.
Everybody's drinking.
Woohoo.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. All right. So the storm of the century.
Did you survive, Jeff?
I can mark myself as safe at this point.
Right up there with go outside and risk death.
Yeah.
You know, from last month.
We get so there is a storm warning here in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon and Washington. A warning that I've actually never seen before in 40 years here. And that was essentially a global tornado warning for anywhere between Eugene and Vancouver, BC, and even further north, as well as the potential for 2-inch hailstones. We get hail, but the largest I've ever seen is like 1/4 of an inch. It like hail happens all the time. Like it hailed like twice 2 weeks ago, where we got like 3/4 of an inch or a full inch of hail on the ground, and it just kind of, you know, melts over the course of an hour or two, and it is what it is. We've never even discussed the possibility of large hailstones, let alone seen a warning for them. And Oregon and Washington, we do get tornadoes, and by that I mean like 1 to 2 per year. And they are the weakest of weak tornadoes. Like, it happens to be a spout, and it happens to touch the ground, and sometimes a roof will rip off of a house. Like, that's our tornado. I think one happened in, was it Florence a couple years ago? And ended up taking the roof off the Dairy Queen.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and there was one that happened in Sublimity when I think I must have been in high school or right after high school, and it took the roof off the hardware store. Yeah. Which was like, what? You know, it was so weird. Yeah.
We did get one in Aurora like 5 or 6 years ago that ended up flipping over a plane at the Aurora airport. And took out a couple power lines, but that's all we get. Like it's not, they're not destructive storms.
My understanding too is that we just don't have the geography for it. Like it's like the topography is just not conducive to tornadoes here. Right.
Yeah. We get the cold air stuck down below and the hot air over top that is normally conducive to forming tornadoes. The problem is it takes so much pressure to force the circulation to begin. In my understanding of that, like the hot air and the cold air don't mix because of the mountain ranges on either side of us. And when they do mix, it's because the hot air is literally just forcing the cold air out of the valley. That's why we also don't get snow.
Did I tell you about? Yeah. Did I tell you about the tornado warning we got a few weeks ago, where they were like, literally, like every phone in our house went off, and it was like, "Take cover now. Get to the lowest point in your house." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
I was like looking outside. I'm like, "Do I have to?" Like, it was so bizarre. We ended up coming to our basement where I am now, but it was like, we did feel a little silly about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I just watched this documentary called, don't know what the documentary is called, but it was about Joplin, Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
The whole city that was destroyed by this freaking tornado.
Yeah.
And my God, like, apparently people had no idea that a tornado was about to devastate them within seconds of their building being completely devastated. So
yeah,
I guess perhaps I should just take the warning more quickly next time.
Usually when there's a weather warning, we don't get like immediate, take shelter in place weather warnings here all that often. I usually abide by those pretty strictly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, we got warnings tonight, the likes of which I've never seen in 40 years here in this state.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it looks like it's going to miss most of Oregon. It might hit like the northern tip of Portland and out in the little jet following the Columbia as it travels north before it heads back towards the ocean. But Washington, hopefully it won't hit too bad either, although it looked like it was going to grow in intensity and basically just cover I-5 and work its way north. So
interesting.
If you live in Washington, anywhere along I-5, basically where anyone lives in Washington, then hope everything goes well for you tonight. Stay safe.
Yeah, I was thinking it was going to be a lot worse here than it was. I woke up with a migraine, and I was like, oh no, the weather is upon us. you know?
So did I. Yep.
Nasty stuff.
Oh, Cheese wants to know if we started talking about the hell story that was our hotel for GTC. I have not, but thank you for bringing that up. I think we will start with that. George, the cheese over at Chips and Cheese, also known as Cheesecake, down in the chat there. He and I attended GTC last week, along with a number of our colleagues. We met up with... Obviously, we were on a podcast with Ian Cuttress. Cheese joined me last week on Talking Heads on Wednesday for the show. We met up with Patrick from Serve the Home. We ran into... I know Wendell was there, although I didn't get a chance to actually hit up with Wendell. But saw a whole bunch of other people that I only get to see, once or twice a year. So always a good time. What was not a good time was our hotel situation. And we didn't really talk about this last week, but I think it bears a little bit of talking about, just because of how this is probably the worst hotel stay I've ever been in. And it started before I even got on the plane to go down there. So I booked the hotel on February 4th for, what was that, a March 17th check-in. So 7 weeks, almost 6.5 weeks. Booked the hotel, got a confirmation number, and was all good to go, right? Well, George was checking, and George and I were sharing a room. George was checking in the day before. So he was checking in on Monday. I was checking in first thing Tuesday morning. And I was paying for the hotel. And so I called the hotel 8 a.m. on Monday morning, and I said, hey, a colleague of mine that I'm sharing a room with is going to be checking in. I need to pay for the room on the company card. Can I go ahead and do that over the phone? Can we just, whatever we can do to get him checked in, because it's my bill. And they said, oh, yeah, what was the name on your room? So I gave them my name, and they said, oh, you were on our list to call this morning because you booked through a third party. And so we didn't know about your reservation until this morning, and we have no available rooms. You're out of luck. And I said, when were you planning on telling me you didn't have any rooms? Since I've had a confirmation for 6.5 weeks now that I had a room when I got off the plane. I don't know if you know this, but when people take a plane, to somewhere they don't live, they typically like to have a place to stay, which is why I arranged for this place 6.5 weeks ago. And they said, yeah, well, our system doesn't work with the third parties. And so what the third parties do is they will book our rooms, but then only show them to us the day that the guests are supposed to check in. And I said, I'm going to be very upfront with you right now. I understand you, as the person answering this phone right now, are not at fault for this. Rett has seen me pull this move before, too. I'm going to say some words. No, they are not directed at you, the person, but at you, the company you represent right now. Because I am on the phone with you as the representative of this establishment. So when were you planning on telling me? And, we don't know until the day of. And I said, how is that supposed to work? And they said, well, I don't know. Well, we can recommend you, we have another in our hotel chain that's part of our network that I believe has vacancies still, and we can get you booked over there. And I said, well, where is that? And they said, 7.5 miles away. And I went, I don't want to Uber into downtown San Jose twice a day, 7.5 miles during one of the busiest periods in San Jose, which is GTC. My Uber, to put this into context, we stayed 5 blocks from the airport. My Uber was $48 on the morning I landed. So no, I'm not moving 7.5 miles away from where I need to be staying because you screwed up. I am not paying an extra $150 to $200 per day in accommodations and travel because a third party screwed up. So obviously I wasn't going to get anywhere. And if they don't have a room, they don't have a room. And so I said, thank you for your time. I will obviously never be booking this again. And I guess if there's nothing more you can do to help me, I'm just going to go start trying to find a hotel in one of the busiest times San Jose knows. So I guess I will be staying 6 miles away, but it won't be at your property. And I hung up. George got to the hotel maybe 10 minutes later, started talking to him, and George ends up texting me and says, hey, the hotel's trying to call you back. And so I called the hotel, and they said, hey, we actually just had a cancellation.
I'm sure they did.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure. We just had a cancellation. And so we can go ahead and get you booked at the price that you paid online. And I said, all right then. As long as I can get the hotel, that's fine. When I got to the hotel, I realized that was probably a mistake. It was dirty. It was grungy. It was, and absolutely no offense to this particular program, but there were a number of rooms on the hotel doors, which were essentially for escaped women from domestic violence. So there was a bunch of literature about that. They had, like, fantastic program. I am not bashing that, and I'm not saying no one should stay at a hotel like that.
No. It's just one metric.
It's a metric of the reality of where this was.
It's a data point. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I'm not disparaging it. I'm just checking it off the list. They had security there. They had alarms on every escape door. So if an exit door was open for more than 5 seconds, an alarm would go off at the front desk as well as the door that you were trying to exit, to prevent anyone from holding a door open for someone. There was, the room was dirty. All of the fixtures were hanging off the walls. Like one of the shelves wasn't even screwed in straight. It was literally like this. George's bed, he sat down on the bed, and his bed was supposed to be attached to the wall, and was not. And so it like lifted off the wall and came crashing back down. Zach saying the alarm woke him up every night. Because we stayed right by one of the exit doors, and every 20 minutes someone's opening that door to simply walk out of the hotel. And if it's open for more than 5 seconds, it's this buzzer that goes off, and it's loud and it wakes you up. The HVAC was one of the loudest I've ever heard. It was a central HVAC, so it wasn't like, your own dedicated heat pump like a lot of hotels have these days. But every time that kicked on, it rattled and shaked and creaked. And
Harley McClear says that the room probably became available when the last guest walked in the lobby and then walked out.
And went, Yeah. So,
and I've been in some of those situations before.
Yeah. So unpleasant, uncomfortable, dirty. I got maybe 3 hours of sleep a night. I don't travel well anyway. I have pretty severe anxiety when I travel, especially if I have things going on that I need to be taken care of and I'm somewhere else and can't take care of things, and I've got whatever going on and kids at home and family at home and whatnot. I worry, and it's just, I need to be somewhat comfortable when I travel if I'm going to get any sleep at all. I was never comfortable in this place. Yeah.
Rough.
Jordan says, come on, give me the shut up, Jordan clip already. There you go. You can clip that out. Oh. So clearly you didn't drink enough during the evenings to combat the ambient noise and environment. We did on a couple nights. I can confirm. Yeah, hopefully Computex will be a more normal than this experience. I sure hope so. We're staying at the Hyatt.
Turns out that's a completely different chain in Taiwan.
If that has even one of the problems of this hotel, I am lodging a formal complaint. Yeah, Zach says the week was still a blast though, despite the accommodations. Absolutely. Jordan says we had a fun Tuesday. Yes. I'm becoming pretty well known for being able to simply like walk indoors at places, whether or not I was invited. And I went and had dinner Tuesday. We had dinner with Anshul and Cheese and a couple other people that we ran into, and fantastic dinner. And Cheese and I got out of there and we went, hey, let's keep this party going. Like 6:30. I got nothing left to do. Like let's go see what Jordan's doing. And so I knew he was in town, so I texted Jordan and I said, hey, where are you at? And he goes, oh, I'm at this bar, like 2 blocks away. I went, oh, you're 2 steps ahead of me already. Awesome. So we show up at this bar and there's a bouncer outside. And he goes, hey, are you here for the so-and-so party? And I went, yeah, of course. And they went, all right, just need to see some IDs. So we gave him IDs. We walked in the door and they gave us drink tickets and we hung out the whole night. And I knew enough people in there that they gave us 2 drink tickets when we walked in. Enough people saw me walk in that they had 1 drink and then gave me their extra drink ticket. So I ended up with like 13 or 14 drink tickets.
Nice.
At a pretty high-end cocktail bar.
Yeah.
So I had a grand time.
That sounds fun.
Night. So, yeah, social engineering 101. Yes, yeah.
So I guess that made up for 1 bad night of accommodations.
Yes.
Maybe not all of it, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
see, the real galaxy brain trick, Jeff, is you don't have to sleep in the bad room if you never go to sleep and you just stay out all night.
This is very true. This is very true. We came close once, so actually it was Tuesday. Yeah, we shut that place down. So Yeah, that was fun. Thank you to Cheese. Thank you to Yakto, Jordan, Ian, everyone else that I saw there. Tons and tons of people that I got to hang out with for a couple hours. I only get to see some of these folks a couple of times a year, so it is always a blast to hang out. And obviously some kind of fun announcements at GTC, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. Like we covered most of it last week, but there's a little like side tangent that I want to cover today. But I think we're going to start with AMD. Lisa Su says the Radeon RX 9000 series launch is AMD's most successful GPU launch ever. And it's kind of hard to argue with that. They didn't give any numbers here in this article. This is according to TechSpot. But I heard some numbers upwards of 200,000 units shipped in just the couple of weeks that the card has been on the market. So pretty impressive as far as that goes. Sorry, I just realized that you still have your little preview window here. So I'm going to just put that right over your nose for now. I don't know why Zoom does this when you go into full screen, but they put a little preview window of your full screen over the top of your full screen. It's like, yes, that's why I made it bigger. I can already see it.
So annoying.
Turn it off, Zoom, please. God, I hate that. But yeah, between the 9070 and 97XT, like I said, the number that I was hearing was 200,000 units shipped, which obviously we don't have like official numbers for Nvidia's 5000 series cards, but I can't imagine AMD underperformed Nvidia based on the shortages that we've seen and the scalping that's taking place. Now, as successful as number of units shipped as AMD has been, the problem is neither company is satiating demand yet. Obviously, demand is still sky high for any GPU, regardless of performance, regardless of perceived value, regardless of MSRP markup or whatever else. Basically, every GPU is immediately out of stock and upwards of 2 times the price on eBay. There's been news this week that prices are starting to normalize. What that means for the RTX 5090 is instead of $5,000, it's now only $4,000. And in fact, there's been a couple of sites that are selling them for $3,000 on the secondary markets. So it's only selling for 50% above retail now. Harkens back to our Jawa ad, which is one of my favorites that we ever did. That was one of the lines, is our cards are only 50% above retail.
That wasn't the deal.
I've altered the deal.
Pray I don't alter it further.
Yeah. And then I hit Rett as hard as I could in the wrist with a lightsaber.
Yeah, it's so funny because it looks so good on camera, but damn.
We practiced that move like 3 or 4 times, and a couple of times I tapped you, and you were like, all right, we're pretty good. And I guess the time we did it live, I made contact and
it's so funny too, because kind of like looking at it, when you watch it, you can kind of just see you're just like your like wind up is like extra aggressive,
I didn't mean to be.
But it makes it look more authentic when the hand collapses to the ground.
Yes, it was so good. It's one of my favorite ads that we've ever done. That and the robot dog walking along the desk and inspecting your severed hand later on.
It's ridiculous how cinematic that dog looked in that shot. Like I think about that sometimes. Like it's a little bit of good lighting, a little bit of we use the camera track.
Yeah,
just like a little bit of lighting, a little bit of movement. It looks so real.
Yep. One of the funniest ones that we've ever done is how over the top it was. We did a Lexar ad for a 1 terabyte NVMe drive, and it was every cinematic trailer trope from the last 20 years. we had Fast and the Furious, we had Pulp Fiction, we had every Vin Diesel action movie that's ever been shot. And I remember the very first comment I ever got when we posted that video was, "Holy crap, that was for an SSD?"
I think about this a lot, and this is probably going way off the rails, but it's like nobody wants to really be advertised to.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, it's like, why advertise to them? We should just do something fun. Yeah. It's like, if somebody gave me something that was more fun and you could tell that people had fun doing it, I'm more likely to watch it and engage with it,
Absolutely.
It's like any of the number of podcasts or anything anymore that's just a dry copy read. And I'm like, this didn't.
Yeah.
I'm going to harm myself, so that I don't have to remember that. I want just one blow to the head so I can purge that memory.
I hate dry reads.
It's the opposite of advertising.
I hate dry reads so much. I've done some on the channel when I literally have nothing funny in the tank. But
sometimes some products don't. It's like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna get.
I will say there's an ad coming up here in the next couple of weeks. If anyone remembers Tom Scott talking about VPNs, about the disingenuous advertising for VPNs, I got a VPN to approve copy on an ad that is the genuine reason why you need VPNs today, including references to maybe your favorite website's not available in one of these 18 states. Maybe you need to download a lot of Linux ISOs. We flirt some lines, but the copy got approved, and so that ad is coming.
Nice.
It's going to be fun. I'm considering wearing the Jack Sparrow hat for
it. Yeah. Nice.
That might be a little too on the nose. And this is the first one this is the first VPN ad that I've ran, and so I kind of wanted to push the limits of what I could get away with in an ad read, but I also want them to come back. So it's going to be fun. That one should actually probably be on the channel this next week. I'm a couple weeks behind because I've been working on other things and traveling and everything else. So video production restarts tomorrow. And I've actually got a video plan to come out on Friday and hopefully another one on Sunday. I've got 2 that have been on the back burner for a while that I'm ready to just turn on the camera and go. So where's the overproduced craftcomputing.store at? Oh, I've got some, I've put some craftcomputing.store with some gratuitous B-roll shots. So maybe I'll have to do a gratuitous one, because you're right, my craftcomputing.store has been just a dry read. How dare I?
Well, those, they always look nice, they read nice, and I don't know, I guess maybe it's different, right? Because it's your own brand. I don't know. It's all right, let's just get this out of the way. I know what I want to say about it, and let's let everybody know it's there.
Will Wheaton is back on Bluesky. He's back on social media, and he's starting a new podcast. In fact, his first episode released today, and so we're going up against Will Wheaton today, which is awesome. But
I can Will Wheaton's ass any day.
Yeah. We have a whole channel on Discord called Shut Up Will, or Shut Up Wesley. So yeah. That being said, Will, if you ever want to join a podcast, I'd be thrilled to have you. No, where was I going with that? Had a point? Had a thought?
His podcast is there.
His podcast. We're releasing a
ads.
He said on Bluesky today, I hate promoting my own brand and my own product because it makes me feel ill. And I get that. I get that so much. Because I don't want to go over the top, and I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And so I tend to pump brakes when it comes to my own thing, and maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should go with, an action movie, you know, or an old Western bar scene where we've got, you know, got these glasses up on a bar top or something like that. And,
I mean, that's a good idea right there.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Maybe I should produce an over-the-top ad for craftcomputing.store. Stop doing the thing that I hate most when it comes to advertisements, and that's doing a dry read for my own product.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, not me. Whoever wrote that comment was right.
Jack Sparrow sends over $5. Thank you so much. I look forward to the shout out. There you go. One of the emoticons on my Discord server is me wearing a Jack Sparrow hat. And it was in reference to where do you find a VMware Enterprise license? And so I put on the hat and I said you could buy them for like $4 on eBay, and apparently they activate. I didn't make any reference to it. I just wore the hat, and then the next jump cut it was gone, and it was fantastic. So mix in some Blazing Saddles. Depends on the reference, but maybe. Yeah. I don't know which reference in Blazing Saddles yeah. I love Mel Brooks.
Because he's Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But see, we can't be Mel Brooks.
Correct.
So don't try.
Yeah. I want to be clear. I don't subscribe to the notion that you can't make a Mel Brooks film today. Yes, you can. You absolutely can. Mel Brooks, obviously famously Jewish, did a lot of Nazi and Holocaust referential humor. Obviously with the Blazing Saddle reference, did a lot of racism and Ku Klux Klan and any other organization that has been traditionally, you know, racist or anti-Jew or anything like that. Incorporated that into like every bit of comedy that he's ever done. There's a difference between calling out stereotypes and making fun of it to take the ammunition away from the racists and the those who were discriminating against you, and playing into the tropes as if they weren't degrading in the first place. The reason Mel Brooks is so funny and is still funny today is because that's exactly what he does. He's taking the ammunition away. He's taking the venom out of the sting of making these jokes and making these references.
And he like rises, I think, to the challenge of like making his writing like, you know, that clever too. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like the people that I think hark on the idea so much of like you can't make that movie anymore. Those are just the types of people that I just think that it's like they just want to be edgy, or they think that it's edgy for the sake of edginess or whatever. When in reality, it's like,
think of the comedians from the 80s that are saying that today. Think of your Seinfeld. Those are the exact people I was thinking of. Think of your comedians from the 80s who fell out of favor somewhere in the mid-2000s, and then today are going, where did my career go? It's like I can't even say anything funny anymore. No, it's because you built your entire brand on literally women be shopping. You got out on stage and said that, and everyone died laughing because it was a misogynistic, you know, put women in their place style joke, and it was okay to laugh at that at the time. The problem is, in 2005, it's not okay to laugh at women be shopping, or I hate my wife, or right. Those, you know, blonde girls stupid, you know, those stereotypical tropes that have been moved beyond in the 30 years since you were last relevant.
Right. Yeah, I think about this a lot where, you know, it's like every once in a while, like Shane Gillis comes across like my feeds or whatever, and he's like got those famous jokes about like his uncle Danny, you know, who's got Down syndrome. He's like, Danny, what are you doing with that cheese? You know, he's got to bring a grilled cheese to every restaurant he goes to or whatever.
That fucker's making them at night. I know he is.
Yeah, you know, and it's so funny. Like, he's managing to like tell jokes about material that like some people would so utterly fail at doing, or they would use Uncle Danny like as the punchline and not like, and it's and it's funny because you watch him do this and I don't know. I think about those types of jokes a lot when I'm thinking about Seinfeld, moaning about the fact that, oh, you can't be funny anymore, you can't be edgy anymore. It's like, no, just like try.
Yeah.
Like just try to like
I will
be
say
clever.
I will say on the Shane Gillis joke, on that exact on Uncle Danny, because Uncle Danny's making grilled cheeses and his dad, they go to a restaurant and he's like, you didn't bring any grilled cheese with you, Danny? No, I didn't bring any grilled cheese. And all of a sudden, Danny's like reaching into his coat pocket. He's got a grilled cheese under his coat, and he's eating that. And whatnot. I have a cousin who has Down syndrome, and her parents laughed their asses off when they heard that for the first time, because it's exactly the kind of things that they go, and that's the personalities and everything else. And you're not laughing at the disability. It's a humorous situation, and it's the personalities that are involved with it that make it funny. And there's a difference between laughing at someone for being disabled and then laughing along with someone because of a situation that their disability has caused or created or has grown out of. I have a son who is nonverbal autistic, and I'm starting to come to terms with talking about that a little bit more. He is this little fireball. He is so much fun to play with. He brings, number one, so much difficulty into the idea of being a parent, with the situations that we have to accommodate now, with the things that we have to deal with on a daily basis. But you better freaking guarantee that me and Mom are making jokes about the situations that we find ourselves in, about the things that we're having to do just because of this personality that exists in our house. And it's not that we're making fun of that. It's he likes to play Tarzan by swinging on our curtains in the living room. And just the other day, one of the first noises that he's started replicating on command when he sees something that he recognizes, he started making elephant noises the other day. And if you've never heard your child speak a word in his life, and then all of a sudden he sees an elephant on screen and he starts recreating that sound, you're like, that's step one. Now, we made fun of the elephant noise. Don't, like, I want to be perfectly clear. But it brought us so much joy, but we can also put, like, bro, you got to do better than that. It's more of, and you're doing like, but it's finding humor within the situation, not in spite of the situation or directed at the situation. And that's the difference.
Well, I think, right, like that's the key thing that like Gillis is doing in those things, is he's like bringing everybody into it, you know, and it's like, and Uncle Danny's not the target, and everybody's kind of in on this in joke. It's like, Uncle Danny's making them at night,
Yeah.
And he goes on to, he's got the whole thing. He's like, everyone's always like, ooh, are you okay? It's like, yeah, I mean, it's Uncle Danny, man, he's fine. Have you never interacted with people like they're better than like 90% of all of us.
He is happier than anyone I know, and that's exactly my son.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think it's just the lack of imagination when people, they just want to say mean or hurtful or lazy things and like think that it's funny. Oh, it's just a joke. It's like, well, be funny.
Yeah,
like I don't know,
be clever with it, and don't make the person who can't punch back the butt of your joke. Yeah, that's when it stops being funny. That's when it crosses the line from even clever into cruel. But my son has a sense of humor, and my son loves playing jokes on us and getting the best of us sometimes. He has what's called an AAC device. It's anymore it's an iPad with a button board on it that can say different words to help him communicate his needs. Now, he knows how to use this device. He also knows how to F with us when using this device. If he doesn't see the thing that he wants, like he'll press food or hungry, and then it'll bring up like 20 options for him. And if he doesn't see the thing that he wants, he'll just go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. He'll just start touching all of them. And I go, okay, I get it, bud. You're not happy with your choices right now. And that's what he's trying to verbalize is none of these sound good, Dad. Yeah. There was once
it's actually very funny.
It's hilarious. He does the same thing with people because we also have a list of people on his screen. So he has a couple therapists that are on there. He has obviously mom and dad and his 2 older sisters and everything else, and then all of our extended family and such. He brought the AAC device to my wife one day and kept hitting grandma. And, oh, do you want to talk to grandma? And so he did grandma. And it's like, all right, let's call grandma. And so we got grandma on FaceTime and talking to grandma for a little bit. And then his cousin, we'll call her D, was in the background. And D said something. And he reached over and he hit D. He hit her name on the AAC, recognized her voice, and went, oh, that's this person. And her brother, we'll call him N, was there. And N said, oh, hey, buddy, how's it going? And he goes, no.
Yes.
I don't want to talk to you. No.
Oh, gotta love the
every time N said a word, he hit no, grandma. No, grandma.
Love it. I think honestly, like the honesty that accompanies like ASD stuff is like my favorite thing. It's the best. It's funny. And just cuts right to the chase.
Yeah, he knows what he wants. He's not afraid of telling you what he wants and that he's displeased with you at this moment. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, shall we say? And do I walk on eggshells around autism jokes? No, as long as autism is not the punchline of the joke and you're not making fun of the retarded kid. There is humor within the world that he lives in. There are humorous situations that we find ourselves in that me and my wife have fantastic opportunity to be able to experience with him. And that's the difference between clever and crude. And that's the difference between making someone who can't punch back the butt of your joke and including them in the situation to experience the joke with you. So, yes, you can make a Mel Brooks film today. You can use those words today. You can use those situations today.
Just don't suck.
Just don't suck at it. Don't be a dick about it. Cosworth sends over $5. By the way, with the tariffs today, Cosworth's got to be thrilled with his choice of vehicle. One of 3 American-made vehicles that won't have tariffs on it because of it's completely manufactured in the U.S. Like it, the one time we can't figure out something wrong with your car. Cosworth sends over $5. The applied behavioral analysis psychology major in me is grinning ear to ear from this conversation. Also, this bad weather was a letdown. Yes, yeah, the weather sucks today. Cosworth lives just a little bit north of me on the path of this storm that is inbound. So, Cosworth, I hope you're safe. Hope everyone is good. Green chimes in with $10. My daughter is autistic, semi-verbal, and the first time she saw something and repeated its name after years was an incredible moment. I almost bawled my eyes out when she said dinosaur. Yeah. I've seen those videos of like a 4 or 5 or 6-year-old kid. You walk in and you go, hey, good morning, bud. And the kid goes, good morning, mom. And just says the words back to you. And I can't tell you how much I desperately long for that day. Because that means I can have a conversation with my son. I've seen those videos, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm holding out hope that one day we'll cross that road. But in the meantime, it doesn't mean I can't communicate with him. It means it's more difficult. With everything, you have to meet people where they are. I think is the biggest takeaway that I found number one, just simply being a person who cares about other people. But extend that to business or life or personal relationships or anything else. Meet people where they are, and you'll really never have a bad conversation or a bad day. Let's see. How did we get from graphics cards to my autistic son?
Don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah. That's where we went.
Oh, ads.
Yeah.
Ads, Mel Brooks.
Ads, Mel Brooks. Okay, we're tying it together.
Edgy comedy.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Uncle Danny.
Yeah, Uncle Danny, Down syndrome. Okay, cool. Dots connecting, yeah. Yeah. Novella says beer number 2, Widowmaker Brewing, The Botanist, double IPA, 8% ABV, 4.15 on Untapped. I'm liking all these high-rated beers tonight. Like, it's really funny because every Wednesday there seems to be like a theme of beers. Like, if you just follow the beers that people check in here in the chat, there's a common thread with them. Sometimes it's been a hot summer day. I'm tired. I kind of want something, but it's a 4.2% shandy kind of night. And everyone checks in the Pilsners and the lagers and the lights and the things like that. Other nights, it's, man, this has been a week from hell. Oh God, it's only Wednesday. And people are cracking 12% barrel-aged stouts that they've saved for 4 or 5 years in their fridge. And we'll get literally nothing but double digits. Tonight, what I'm seeing is not necessarily heavy hitters when it comes to ABV, but heavy hitters when it comes to quality. I think the lowest score Untapped that I've seen come in today is a 3.83. And then I've seen a number of 4.2s. Like, that's the third 4.2 that has come in today. With a couple like 4.08s and things like that. So, yeah.
It's been a week, man.
Quality over quantity today is the vibe that I'm getting.
I opened my second beer. Rogue Dead Guy Imperial IPA.
Excellent choice.
It's 9-point-something%, so a little bigger than my puny Radler that I just polished off.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
drinking it out of the can, know,
because I'm just 4 minutes behind you.
Yeah. I've just got a short boy right now, so
that's all right. Well, that means you can have third beer, right?
Yeah, we'll see. The problem is I can't have 3 beers on the show without desperately having to like get up like right around 7:45. I'm like, I can't hold it anymore.
Tap it out. The cork is gonna blow. Novella says, how is the Elm Creek Brewing Triple IPA? This is delicious. There's a dirty rumor going around that I don't like hazies, and that could not be further from the truth. I like good hazies. I like hazies that don't punish you for drinking a hazy. Yeah. There's a difference. You started that rumor, so don't you me. That is remarkably smooth for a 10% triple IPA. It is piney and pineapple-y. It's got both going for it. It is definitely very much on the super bright, bitey citrus notes. The pineapple and mandarin orange and those super high acidic citrusy notes. And you can feel it just on the roof of your mouth. You can feel just a little burn from that acid right there. But by the time it hits your throat, it is super smooth. I'm not going to say it doesn't drink like a 10%. It definitely does. You can definitely tell there's some booze and some heat behind it. But as far as a New England style hazy that usually punishes you for drinking anything over a 6%, this is freaking amazing. I thought you liked the hazy back in your throat burn, Craft Computing. I do not. My description of those beers is I like those beers, but only the first 4 ounces. Like a lot of them have amazingly good flavor. But the problem is the acid burn prohibits you from continuing to be able to taste that flavor. And so you counter with beers like this, where it has that same huge, bold, bright, citrusy, acidic, tropical fruit salad kind of a flavor profile. But it doesn't hurt after 10 minutes. And these are the hazies that I like. Skull says, fine, I'll join the 4+ club. Hot Butcher Brewing, 2 thumbs up. Imperial Double Hazy IPA, 4.1 on Untapped. Excellent.
Well done, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping the dream alive.
And with that, I have finished that beer. So I'm actually going to look up what my beer is. Oh, it's only a 3.85 on Untapped. Dang it.
Somebody already broke the streak in chat too. So
To be fair, though, I think mine gets an automatic +2 for being from a growler. So, because
I don't think so.
This was on draft.
I think it makes it an automatic -2.
No.
It's not fresh. Who knows what kind of contaminants you had in there beforehand?
There we go.
-2.
So this is from literally our favorite local brewer, San EM. This is the Bloody Hell Double IPA, 8.5%. It gets a 3.81 on Untapped. So that actually puts me at the bottom of the charts when it comes to...
How does it only have a 3.81?
I'm confused by that. I could have sworn this one would have been a 4 or to a 4.1.
How many beers do they have on Untapped that are below 4? That's what I want to know.
Oh, a lot. And this one's got 2,916 check-ins. It's not a slouch when it comes to number of ratings, but it's only a 3.81. I disagree. I don't know if I'd give this a 4.25, but I think a 4 to a 4.1 is certainly...
I wonder how many people like this happens with, where, because you get people all the time who an IPA isn't their beer and they're going to drink it and they're going to rate it lowly because an IPA isn't their beer.
I hate people who rate like that.
I'm like, just don't rate it then.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know from people who like this shit.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know. Yeah. That's a good color.
Yeah, it's a fantastic... This is an IPA. And it's got this slightly amber red hue to it.
Yeah, it looks like a good red, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Baja Blast Punch. Now we're talking, Sean.
What is my sister in the chat? Lord.
You shut your mouth. Baja Blast Punch. That's the drink of kings.
Again, we do not discriminate on this show. I might judge silently.
We listen and we don't judge. That's the meme, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no possible way I rate that below a 4. I don't know if I give it 4 1/4. Like, I'm gonna be totally honest, but I also don't give that a 3.75. I think that's
I guess
a 4.
I'm also the type of person too, though, who, like, if I'm not rating it a 4, like, I'm probably just not gonna rate it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of rating a beer a 3, right? Like, supposedly a 3 is supposed to be like, it's average, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
like,
so
okay.
So it's a 5-star system. The 5th star for most intent or for most purpose doesn't exist.
I I mean, statistically it exists. It's just like nobody's going to have a 5-star beer.
I have never rated a beer at a 5-star. I've given really? A couple of 4.75.
Wait, you can do
or 4.5
stars on this?
4.5. Yeah, you can do half.
What's that? What is even the point then of a 5-star system if you can do halves?
Yeah.
Just make it a 10-point scale at that point.
Right.
I'm mad. Yeah. I'm mad at it.
So it's out of 5. Most of the time, the highest rated beers are about 4.25. Average beer is a 3 to a 3.25. And so it's a very narrow window of like, the best beer you've ever had could be a 4.18. And an average beer that you pick up at a grocery store could be a 3.45. Could be a 3.45. So it's like a very narrow window where you have to kind of decipher within that. 10 is too many stars for people to easily count.
You don't need to count them out loud.
Yeah.
It's not Sesame Street. The count isn't there to tell you how many stars your beer has. Just look at a number.
Yeah. What are your thoughts and opinions on Weiss beer? Oh, I love German-style Weiss beer, Hefeweizens, traditional German brews, etc.
Am I wrong in recalling that like a lot of Weiss beers almost have like that sour quality to them, or am I making that up?
No, a little bit. No, you're not wrong. Like a little bit of sour mash still left.
Yeah, almost like a farmhousey type.
Yeah,
like not quite that pungent, but
I mean that's why we go to Faultline / Laughing Monk Brewery. They're a German-style brewery in San Jose, and they're freaking wonderful. We did our 3rd show last week from there. You were there for the first one, so yeah, that was great.
It's a great place.
Yeah, love going there. I recently drank a Frankenskaner Weiss beer and thoroughly enjoyed it. Do microbreweries in Oregon brew Weiss beer recipes regularly? You have to find a German-inspired brewery, because German brewing is a little bit different from the way everyone else does beers. Like Santiam is an English style pub and brewery. They do a lot of browns, a lot of reds, and a lot of West Coast IPAs, but tending to be slightly maltier than what like a traditional West Coast IPA would be, like a Stone or a Sierra Nevada. A good German beer. We've talked about it before. I hate to keep going back to them because they don't exist anymore. But Belgian Underground was one of our favorite local gypsy brewers. And I know them. Rett, you know them. He lives in your town.
One of my friends bought the house where they were brewing their beer.
Yeah.
And so for a while, Belgian Underground was like in the shop in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they went to Seven Brides and Gypsy brewed at Seven Brides Brewing for a while. And then Seven Brides lost their lease. And then Ratchet Brewing purchased that spot. And so, anyway, Mid-Willamette Valley brewery history notwithstanding, usually you go German beer centric or you don't. And so you want to find a brewery that does a lot of German beer, a lot of Belgian Abbeys or German inspired Hefs and Weiss beers and things like that. Because it really is a style and an esoterica that you have to build upon, that you have to know inside and out, because it is different than anything that we do here in the West. That being said, I love a good Weiss beer. I'm trying to think of what my favorite one would be right now. Like I said, we just went to Laughing Monk Brewery, which is a German-inspired Belgian monk-style brewery. They're in Sunnyvale, California. I had an IPA there. I had a red ale there. The red ale was freaking amazing. They did have a Weiss beer. Their Hefeweizen, I remember, is particularly delicious. But
did I tell you that my brother, he likes to organize these like PowerPoint parties.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
And he did one on English beers. And he brought samples for everybody. And he went through like 10 different styles of English beers. And it was really good. And like he worked really hard to pick the samples. And he picked some that like I was so stoked because it's like I love a good brown ale, for example.
Yeah.
But like everybody's drinking like Newcastles or whatever, right? It's not the best brown ale. It's fine, but it's And he picked something that almost blew my mind. I was like, if this is what every brown ale was, this is all I would drink.
Yeah.
And then same thing with like what really surprised me is he found a traditional English style IPA, which is nothing like an American IPA.
No. The fun thing about Santiam, and the reason why I love going to Santiam Brewing, is not only will they have, I think they have 12 taps that are behind their bar, they also do cask style ales, which means it is not carbonated by a CO2 tank, and they keep it at about 60 degrees Fahrenheit instead of 35 degrees Fahrenheit. And so it's not carbonated. They will take some of their English inspired brews and they will pour them to you cask style as you would have gotten in 1840.
Yeah. What do they call those? Are those firkins? Is that what those things are called? Or no?
No, that's a style of beer. Just cask ale is what they're known as.
Because that was the thing. Like when that restaurant downtown, Venti's, when they had their big tap house out south.
Yeah.
And they had they would do cask nights, and you could buy cask beers, and that was crazy. But Ratchet does like cask opening nights. I thought they were called like firkin nights or something. But maybe that's because they've got firkins. I don't know,
yeah.
But yeah, man, there's something special about a cask beer. That's next level stuff.
Fuller's ESB, that's a fantastic one, especially if you can find it cask. And Rev says, all drinks are welcome here. Two Towns is a favorite. Two Towns is especially a favorite in my house. So my wife has celiac disease, so she can't drink beer, but she loves cider. And we've always got at least a couple of 6-packs of Two Towns in the house. The blackberry cider has been her recent favorite. I'm partial to the pineapple paradise. That's probably my go-to if I get a cider. But Cider Valid, Two Town Cider House, Cosmic Crisp. That's a great one. I love Cosmic Crisp. What is the one? If you really want to go hardcore cider, hardcore Two Towns, Two Towns makes the Super Bad Apple. It is a 12% imperial cinnamon apple cider. It tastes like apple pie with a crust, and it's a cider, and it's gluten-free, and it's amazing.
Sounds amazing. You know what I was pretty pleased with lately, right? So, my wife looks at me the other day.
Novella, like, there's the bad apple. There's also the super bad apple. The bad apple's only 10%. We shun that one in this household. No, the super bad is 12%. Two different brews.
The other day, my wife looks at me and she's like, you know what? I really want to try some scotch, but I want something smoky, right? And so, like, naturally, like, I've always been like oh, you son of a gun, Jeff. I'll tell you guys, though. Naturally, I've been a Lagavulin guy, and I think you guys have seen me. I've drank Lagavulin 16. I also really like the 8. It's kind of sweet compared to the 16. The smokiness is a little intense. But, I was like, am I really going to buy a bottle of Lagavulin 16 to try to, like, introduce my wife to that peaty scotch? What do they call that? Islay scotch? Anyway, you guys can tell me in there. I'm getting to Morrowind novella, but first scotch. Anyway, so the Lefroy 10-year, right? It's a little bit more affordable by a lot compared to the Lagavulin 16. And it's really good. I really like the Lefroy 10. So there you go. Interestingly enough, I don't want to out my age here, but I saw a thread on Bluesky the other day that mentioned that the game that probably most impacted you was a game that you played at 12. And I'm aging myself, fuck it. But 2002, Morrowind came out, so there you go. That's probably why Morrowind was so special to me.
I can't leave the chat for 30 seconds.
I talked about Scotch. You were gone. I did a whole thing about Scotch. I went into Lefroy tenure, and here we are.
Everyone's okay. There was a loud crash outside.
Okay.
Everyone's all right.
I was getting into a whole thing about Scotch, and you just got up and left, and I was like, well, all right. So I told everybody else, you're going to have to catch the VOD after this, or listen to it on your preferred podcast platform.
Yeah. All right. Everyone's all right. We're all good. Kid took 2 or 3 stairs to the bum coming down, missed a stair, and proceeded to take 4 or 5 of them at once. So, but we're okay. Everyone's good.
Typical kid stuff.
Happens
all the time before you're 16 years old, but then anytime after that, you risk death.
Oh, I'm going to the hospital. There's no question.
I watched my son the other day fall off his bike, and I was like, if that happened to me today, I'd be done for. He got just dusted off, got back on. I was like,
years ago. God, how old was my oldest? So I'm in the living room in our last house, and we had a staircase behind the living room. And I remember I was on the phone with my dad, and I was talking to my dad, and I heard my oldest playing upstairs. She had to have been maybe 4. And I'm just talking to him, and we're just having a regular conversation about shooting the crap about whatever else. And from behind me, I hear the thump, the thump, the thump. And I immediately went, I gotta go. Someone just fell down the stairs. But there wasn't a moment of panic in me. It was just like, yeah, someone fell down the stairs. I gotta go. And I hung up the phone, and I went over there. And my daughter literally cartwheeled down the stairs. Head, butt, head on the wall. And she goes, that really hurt. And I'm like, yeah, I imagine it really hurt. Are you okay? And so we're doing extremity checks, and hands and feet and toes and fingers and everything wiggles. And okay, we're okay. All right, we're all good. And a couple of snuggles, and she was back up in 30 seconds and going about her day. I'm like, I would have died. And that was 10 years ago. Oh gosh. Yeah, and actually, speaking of that, my daughter was about 4 months old, maybe 3 months old.
Story.
Yeah. And she woke up in the night, and she was crying. She was hungry, needed a change, and that kind of thing. And me and my wife woke up at the same time. Like, no, I got this one. It's all right. And so I got up and picked up my daughter out of her crib. I've got her on my right shoulder right here. And I take one step on the staircase, and I miss the second step. And I go full banana peel at the top of the stairs with my feet stretching outwards. And then I proceed to fall vertically about 6 feet. And catch stairs under my ribs. And it wasn't like it was a fall that I could have caught myself with. I might have been able to catch myself had I had both hands and all of my wits about me, not at 2 a.m. But that deep-seated parental instinct just kind of took over. And so I missed the stair, and I tucked and covered, and I did this. And I fell 6 feet vertically and landed essentially on the stair landing at the bottom of our stairway. And I got a good scream out in the process, which woke my wife up. And so she comes running downstairs. And I've got my daughter still just pinned to my shoulder. And I go, I think she's okay. I just need to catch my breath. So I hand my daughter up to my wife. And I'm leaning my head against the wall, and I'm trying to breathe. Like, I know I've broken ribs. Like it's bad. And I'm just trying to get a breath in so I can kind of rest the extremity check, that kind of thing. And I open my eyes for a second, and I see my daughter fall in front of me and land on the stair platform in front of me. And I went, what the hell? And I reach down and I grab her, followed by my wife, who had passed out from adrenaline. And so my wife face plants on the stair landing and then goes the next stair down into the hallway. Broke her nose on the stairs.
Oh
no. I can't breathe. I can't move. And my wife is now literally passed out in front of me. I crawled back up the stairs, literally, like, daughter in one arm, crawling back up. I put my daughter back in her crib, and I remember saying, at least you can't get hurt here. Go back down the stairs, check on my wife. She's regained consciousness. She's like bleeding profusely out of her nose. And so I crawl back up the stairs. I get a cell phone. And long story short, we had to call 3 different people to get someone over to come help us. I hairline fractured a couple of ribs on my right side on the back side. Like they couldn't like for certain say they were broken, but they're like, I'd be amazed if they weren't.
Yeah. You know, sometimes too, it depends on the type of injury. It's like it may as well be broken for like semantical purposes, right? It's like the pain is the same. It takes the same recovery period. You know, play it up to the people that need to hear your ribs are broken, because
I broke
like, they
2
may as
ribs
well
falling down the stairs. Yes.
Yeah.
So I had my dad come over and drive me to the ER to get emergency x-rays and whatnot and figure out what was wrong. And my wife's mom stayed with her and the kid and got everything settled there. And we got the kid changed and fed, and the kid went right back to sleep and showed no ill signs of anything ever happening. But I got home at maybe like 6:30 in the morning or something like that. And my mother-in-law was sleeping downstairs, and my daughter was in the bassinet, and I couldn't even make it up the stairs, and I couldn't lay down on a couch or anything. Like I was so incredibly hurting everywhere. I fell asleep in like an office chair, like a gamer office chair like this. And the bassinet was right next to me. And my mother-in-law was there in case the baby woke up. And so the baby wakes up, oh, take care of the baby, whatever else. Well, every time the baby would wake up, I would like snap awake and I'd reach over and just start rocking the bassinet and I'd put her back to sleep. And then about the 4th time that I did that, I opened my eye a little bit more, and my mother-in-law is standing over me and going, I don't know why I'm even here if you're going to keep doing that. And so I rolled across the room and tried to fall asleep in the corner.
Well, maybe if you were faster, mother-in-law, I wouldn't have to.
Right.
I could get some real recovery.
I gotta do both things?
Oh, man, alive.
Do you scream from lower pitch to higher pitch, high to low, or just straight one tone? I tend to do... naturally, I'm more of a baritone, especially when I scream. So it tends to be middle male voice. Like it's not high, it's not low. It's just it's that. That's how I scream. And I do believe I got out a motherfuck on one of the bounces. And a couple of the thump, and then and that's basically all I could get out of me. I was out of air at that point.
Broken ribs are the worst, man. I broke some ribs too one time. Back when I was a class trader who apprehended shoplifters.
I remember you telling me this story.
A guy who looks like Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. Yep. Yeah. Hit my head on the ground, had a concussion, broke ribs, and I still managed to bring him back to the office. mean, can't really brag about it anymore. It's like that whole like chapter of my career. It's just like I feel awful about. But you know, you do what you got to do living under capitalism sometimes. So
yep.
Oh, but seriously, he looked exactly like Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. Length of hair, color of hair, face, eye color.
I don't want it.
Even his clothes.
I do not want it.
You know nothing, Jon Snow. Yeah, that was awful. I just moved. That was when I just moved from into my house in Salem. It was like literally like the week I had moved in.
Yeah.
Ancient history now.
Yeah. Well, we do have some more news to get to.
Do it.
This one caught my eye simply because of the absurdity of it. I doubt this will ever become a product or something that you buy in a vehicle, but it's been patented all the same. And that is, do you know how your parents and eventually us will go, they don't make them like they used to. Remember when we had, phones that would just call people and that was it? And do you remember when you walked into a store and you just bought the things you wanted and you didn't have to worry about Amazon or any of this? Do you remember when there were 3 pedals in a car and you had to shift gears? And I wish we could just go back to the way things were.
I remember when they shifted gears, Jeff. Huh?
From one very long-term stick shift driver to another, I have found myself at a point in my life right now where for 20 years I drove a stick shift and I suddenly find myself with 3 automatics and I don't know what to do.
Just enjoy the drive. That's all you gotta do.
It's hard. I don't like it. This product was intended specifically for me and I hate it. Ford has patented a manual gear shifter for EVs.
Oh, that's great.
Notice I didn't say attached to a geared or cogged transmission. There's a caveat. It will reduce power in first gear, and then you get slightly more, and slightly more, and slightly more, and slightly more, and then to simulate the feel of a stick shift.
That's fun.
From an engine that never changes RPM when you shift.
That's fun.
I hate it.
No, this is fun. Jeff, this isn't for you. Okay? But this is fun.
From someone who has investigated methods of converting vehicles and maintaining their manual transmissions once the EV conversion is complete. At one point, I almost bought a Jaguar XJ or XK. XK? It's the
not a fan of how you said Jaguar.
Jaguar.
Not a fan.
The 1998 V12. It's one of the most gorgeous cars ever made, in my opinion. I love the long swooping nose. I love the super huge twin doors. It's a gorgeous car. I almost bought one with the intent of EV converting it. That project fell by the wayside. I decided not to go for it. But my full intention was to buy a 5-speed manual Jaguar XJ and EV convert it. So I'd actually reached out to a couple different companies to make me adapter plates to the stock transmission, including buying oil pumps and everything else I needed to make sure the transmission wouldn't like disintegrate itself because there's no running engine and compression and all that kind of stuff. I wanted a Jaguar XJ with an EV, but with a 5-speed manual transmission, because I thought that would have been just freaking fun as hell. Now, obviously, you could probably just put that car into 3rd gear and drive it, and it would have been great.
Right, yeah.
But I wanted the feel of a manual transmission, and I wanted to actually change RPM and change, you know, electric motors, you get 100% of the torque at 1 RPM. But there's definitely an efficiency curve. They want to run at a specific RPM. And right now, the way electric motors are geared is they want you to run at about 45 miles an hour. That's like the great trade-off of efficiency versus power. And so the faster your motor is spinning, the faster your car goes. I wanted to find a motor that was comfortable at revving about the same that a gas motor would be, about 2,500 to 3,000 RPM, and attach it to a manual transmission and set the gearing as such that if I want to drag race this car, or I want to highway run this car, or whatever else, I can run the electric motor at its peak efficiency and still get the peak output at the wheels. That was the goal. It ended up being way more work than I really wanted to endeavor upon, and so I ended up not doing it. But that's the point of a manual transmission, is to equate engine output to wheel spin at the greatest possible efficiency, right? I mean, if you break it down, that's the purpose of a transmission. What is the purpose of this?
Fun.
It's not even aesthetic. Fun. I will argue this probably isn't even fun, because the only thing they can do is reduce power in first, second, and third gear. Yeah. And top you out at a certain RPM until you have to shift to second. And then you put it into second and it goes, oh, I'm going to unlock 4,000 RPM now. And then you shift into third and it goes, I'm going to unlock 4,700 RPM now.
Look, if they can get the feel down or whatever, then it's just a fun aesthetic thing. Personally, the culture war that there's always been kind of between like the automatic transmission versus the manual thing that for some reason only exists in the United States has always been kind of lame anyways. And, you know, I don't know. If you want to pretend, you know, it's like this. It's like when I back out of my garage, Jeff, and I got to make sure that my fan speed's on the right thing, my radio's on the right thing, and then I close the garage door. It feels like I'm in the Millennium Falcon, okay? Mm-hmm. That's fun. Now, if I could shift my car and feel like I'm, you know, driving a cool James Bond car, then why not? But
screw you, Cyano. Cyano sends over $2. Jeff, 2025. Greatest possible efficiency, as quoted by Sean Connery. Greatest possible efficiency. And Trick Logic, I have seen that video of the right now it's a CVT, but it's for bikes, and it's a manually shifting infinitely variable CVT. It's super cool. And actually, the planetary gear set CVT is coming to Toyota. They're going to be one of the first to deploy it. Right now, it is still the 2-cylinder infinitely variable transmission, CVT, continuously variable transmission. But Toyota and Subaru have invested huge money into developing a more efficient and much more durable CVT based on planetary gear sets. If you're in the Discord, this video in Talking Heads tells you basically everything you need to know about the future of CVTs and why they suck right now and why they will not suck in the future. And potentially why you might start seeing CVTs in electric motors for specifically the thing that I talked about earlier, which is the greatest possible efficiency of the motor paired to the greatest possible efficiency of the wheel spin. You need a CVT for that. So that's a great video, even though it's talking about a bike transmission of all things, a bicycle transmission. But it's a great video. Not a Pickle. I love that name. $5. I just want better trains. Don't we all?
Choo choo.
If I could have, instead of driving up to PDX, getting on a plane at 6 a.m, and flying down to San Jose, gotten on a train here 6 miles from my house because there's a station here, and been down to San Jose, even in twice the time, I'd be on board. The problem is, trains have one track, and they have to stop at every station along the route, and typically that stop involves like 20 or 30 minutes, so people can get off, get on, get food, go to the bathroom, sit down, tickets, etc.
If there's more trains, the stops could be shorter and less frequent.
You are correct. But from where I live in Salem, Oregon, a trip to San Francisco is 22 hours on a train.
Yeah. And it's pretty expensive.
Sorry. I'm going to drive an hour to PDX, go through an hour and a half's worth of security and boarding and rigmarole and everything else that's involved. I'm going to have an hour and 40-minute flight with refreshments provided by the airline. I'm going to get off and get in an Uber to my hotel. Grand total, I'm where I wanted to be within 6 hours.
I'm like, in a pinch, it's not even that long of a drive either. You know, like if you really had to drive, right?
It's about
like,
10 hours,
like 10
to
hours?
San Francisco,
Yeah.
maybe another hour to San Jose if I did that, so 11 hours. It's still half the time to drive as it would be sitting in a train.
Yeah.
And the train runs but once per day. Yes, I want better trains.
Part of that, right, is that we live on the West Coast and we got like one major train line. You know, which is a bummer. It's a real bummer. I've always thought like there's so many. Wouldn't it just be great to go out and do stuff without ever having to get into your car? You could like go out to like, you know, I think this all the time, like all of these great like wineries over there, you know, west of the Willamette River. It's like, wouldn't it be great to go and hit a bunch of those without having to like get in my car and like risk hurting somebody? You know, it's like you can go to one winery, have a nice tasting, go home. That's it.
I've had a couple experiences like that. Number one, my wife and I, this is all the way back in 2010. We stayed for a week in the Mission in San Francisco. We got a hotel room, and we stayed right in the heart of the Mission. And we could walk outside the hotel door, and within 300 feet, there was a station for the BART, which is the Bay Area Rapid Transit. And we can get anywhere in the Bay Area, east or west, north or south, that we wanted to get, inside of about an hour. We could walk just about anywhere in the Mission that we wanted to walk. We could take the trolley down or up north. We could take it to Oracle. We could go over further west towards the wharf. We could do basically whatever we wanted to do. And so we drove down there. It was about a 10.5-hour drive. I parked the car at the hotel on Sunday afternoon. I didn't get back in my car until Saturday when we left, because all we did was walk out of our hotel and go, which direction do we want to go and how do we want to get there? And that was before Uber. Like, we didn't Uber anywhere. We took BART, or we walked, or we took a trolley or whatever else. And it was wonderful. And I freaking loved that. And also you say, you know, like hit some of the wineries and breweries and things like that around here. I've got an electric bicycle, and it's awesome for that. Now, still can't drive it impaired. But there are breweries and wineries within easy biking distance of my house.
Yeah.
And during the summer, I tend to start hitting some of the wineries around here because, you know, within 4 miles, I can hit like 3 wineries and 2 breweries or something like that. And then a couple tap houses as well. So yeah, during the summer, I tend to try to do that. Now, can't bring the wife on the bike. I only have the one electric bike. But yeah.
Yeah, it'd just be great, you know, and I always think this too about Salem in particular. It's like there's a few streets that, and this isn't unique to me or my ideas, and I think this was historically true. Like there's a few streets where there were like trolleys or streetcars, and there's a few streets today that like a trolley or a streetcar would be amazing.
Yeah.
Um, like specifically, like there's this whole like section of like commercial into downtown that would be really interesting, or like maybe a couple of these downtown stretches. Like, I don't know, there's just so much wasted potential, you know, and like luckily like Salem's got its buses back compared to like 10 years ago where they were only running like 5 days a week. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, trains would be amazing if we could get them more reliable here um than whatever I was going to say. You know, I had a friend who actually he lived over in I guess technically Independence, so like not too far out of Salem.
Yeah.
And he worked at U of O down in Eugene, and him and his wife were a one-car family, and she worked in Salem, and so she'd drop him off at the Amtrak station every morning, and he would ride the bus into Eugene and ride the bus back, or train. He would ride the train to and from Eugene and Salem every day, and it was a lot, but at the same time he never felt like he was losing that much in the commute, because it's like he could sit there, he could get some work done, he could read a book, he could watch a movie, you know, he could just hang out. It wasn't like he had to focus and keep his hands on the wheel, and you know, and sometimes that stretch between Salem and Eugene can be pretty ghoulish.
It is. It is 90 miles of nothing but straight road and no landmarks. And yeah, it's a...
Anytime I've left home, you know, that stretch, it's like wonderful. What a beautiful stretch. Anytime you're coming home, what an awful stretch. How much longer can the stretch possibly go?
Yeah.
And also it's 2 lanes. And so it's like really prone to like backups if there's like an accident or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's huge stretches where it's like you only have an exit like every 10, 15 miles, like huge stretches. I mean, there's probably a couple of those, but like particularly like south of Albany all the way to Brownsville. Jesus, good luck if you miss that South Albany exit, you idiot.
It's You're 9 miles to Brownsville.
One, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's like don't miss that exit, you goofball, which I've done definitely 3 times. So
not gonna say I haven't done that one. Yep. Anyway, we do have some more news to get to. This one I thought was kind of interesting. So the last couple of weeks we've been talking about AMD Strix Halo, and obviously last week we got the official release of Nvidia's Project Digits, which is now named DGX Spark. But the reason for these particular architectures, that is AMD's 16-core APU system with 40 compute units of RDNA 3.5 graphics processing on board and 128 gigabytes of unified LPDDR5X memory. If you go over and you look at NVIDIA's camp and you see a 20-core Grace ARM-powered CPU with the GB10 Blackwell 10 NVIDIA GPU core, again with upwards of 128 or 256 gigabytes of unified, shared, addressable, shareable by both components memory. That is definitely a direction that a number of players are looking to go. It's really funny because the reason they want those types of systems with the highly addressable and configurable and distributable memory platforms is because of the increasing need and desire to run AI locally on workstations. So traditionally, AI workloads have been ran on graphics cards, and so you rely on whatever the memory of your graphics card is. And as we all know, we've been stuck on 8 gigabytes for however many years, unless you have bajillions of dollars to sling at graphics cards. The latest flock from Nvidia has 32, 16, 16, and 12. The latest two cards from AMD have 16 and 16 gigabytes respectively for all of their various models. But you glance over at the APU systems, that is the CPU and GPU on a single unified die or a single shared platform, and you get 128 gigabytes of configurable memory. That is, you can configure 16 gigabytes to the CPU and 108 gigabytes or 112 gigabytes to the GPU. And now you've got 112 gigabytes of VRAM to sling at whatever process you want, or flip it completely the other direction and give your GPU 16 gigs and your CPU 112 gigs. Highly configurable, highly versatile systems. Apple's been doing that for 5 years now. And actually the roots were laid in 2009 for this kind of system. And so this article from Cult of Mac was really funny of how AI, or how Apple accidentally stumbled into making the world's best AI platform. So on the screen right here is the Mac Studio with the M3 Ultra. And it supports 512 gigabytes of unified DDR5 memory. Which means at any point in time, either the CPU or the GPU, which is the AI-centric piece of it, can take basically 100% of that memory pool for itself as natively accessible memory. This was the whole point of Apple's ecosystem. This was the whole idea, is create a system in which you can, on the fly, move your demands or allocate resources to whatever it needs, and run your software. And as it turns out, AI desperately needs as much video RAM as you can possibly feed it. The really fun part about what Apple stumbled into, because I guarantee running a local LLM was not on their list of things that they were planning on doing. In fact, they were planning on being fully cloud connected with Siri and artificial intelligence and all this kind of stuff. That was always going to be a cloud service thing. They had no intent of making any of those services local. But we talked about DeepSeek maybe about a month ago, about how it's kind of burst onto the scene and is kind of kicking ChatGPT in the balls and taking its lunch money as far as the accessibility and the availability of running this service. The DeepSeek V3 model requires 288 gigabytes of video memory to run. Traditionally, that has meant NVIDIA NVLink systems, GB200s, H100s, AMD H300Is, or A300Is, or whatever, A325s, or whatever the hell AMD calls their systems anymore. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting chip names right now.
You idiot.
With hundreds of gigabytes of HBM memory on board, that you have to run at least 2 of those GPUs in parallel to be able to run one of these models. Or you can just pick up a Mac Studio with 512 gigs of memory and run it for $9,000. Yes, the system is $9,000, and yes, that's absurd. Memory doesn't cost that much. Unless you want it in an Apple system. But have you priced an H100 lately? Have you priced a GB200 lately? Have you priced an AMD 300X, 325i lately? Those are 10 grand by themselves without a computer around them. Apple's M3 Mac Studio with the M3 Ultra is running natively DeepSeek's largest model.
Nice.
We have required an entire rack to run this model previously, simply for a video memory requirement, or at least a 2U server, to NVLink all those different systems together. But DeepSeek V3 runs in 4-bit at greater than 20 tokens per second. That is 20 inquiries and responses per second on the 512 gigabyte M3 Ultra. It weighs in at a 641 gigabyte download and boasts a 670 billion parameter LLM. To put that in perspective, when we're talking about running Llama or any of the open source API Hugging Face LLMs, we're usually talking about a 70 billion parameter. This is 10 times that size. 670 billion parameter AI model running locally on one piece of hardware that Apple stumbled into. It's kind of insane.
No, that's interesting. I mean, it shows you too that there's going to continually be new ways to think about the way that you can get the compute to run these models and stuff too, which is, I think, useful, since one of the largest, complaints against this technology is the energy usage and things like this.
Right.
If you don't need a whole server rack to run it, I mean, that's a positive. So
what is the M3 Ultra Max Studio? 200 watts?
Right.
It's not a lot. In fact, I'm going to look that up right now. $270 watt.
There you go.
9 watt idle, 270 max. There you go. M3 Ultra 32 core, 80 core GPU, 512 gigabyte unified memory, 16 terabyte SSD, 9 watts at aisle, 270 watt max consumption. 270 watts is all it takes to run one of the world's most comprehensive AI workloads. That's insane. That's absolutely insane.
Apple doing it again.
Yeah. Oh, it's like the same power as an RTX 3070. Basically, yes. Okay, but that idle power consumption, that is something that a lot of people gloss over when it comes to Apple Silicon as well. When you have that kind of vertical integration when you're creating a system. I just got an M4 Mac Mini here on my workbench behind me. I've always been a Mac fan when it comes to workflow for specific things. I actually use my workbench behind me has had a Mac for a very long time. I ran the M1 Mac Mini for a long time, doing a lot of 3D modeling. And before, it was like for fun. It was like working on a 3D print that I wanted, or modeling up, a bracket for something in my house. Anymore, it's literally been for, like actual practical applications of engineering, like modeling up rack ears that you can later turn into aluminum. So yeah, I did all of this modeling on my M4 Mac Mini. And it's been fantastic along the way. But yeah, my M4 Mac Mini draws like 7 or 8 watts if the display's not on. Like, it's crazy.
Perfect.
My one complaint about the Mac Mini is I did have to buy a couple USB-C to Lightning cables to make my wireless keyboard and mouse for it work. I have the... Can I reach it? Hold on. There we go. I do have the actual proper Mac peripherals, which I've owned these for a very long time. I have the Apple Trackpad 2 and then the 10 keyless Apple keyboard here. They're both still Lightning, which is the weirdest freaking thing to me. It absolutely makes no sense, but at the same time, I can't complain that they work for a month on end without needing charged. So I do have a couple USB-C to Lightning cables, which I think is one of the most cursed adapters that's ever been made. Those are plugged into the Mac Mini now permanently, and then I've got a couple like dongle or a couple cable holders that are holding them on the back of the desk if I ever need to plug them in. But no, this is where I do all my 3D modeling and all my testing and electronic stuff and anything that needs any of my soldering. Yeah. Yeah, 9 watts is close to a Raspberry Pi at max power consumption. Yeah, when you put it in that scale, it's kind of crazy. By the way, the M4 Basic that's on here, it's like a 35 watt chip. I could probably move my video editing over to this system if I really wanted to.
Oh.
Like it's... If you're doing something creative in which there's software written for you, you could do a lot worse than going Apple Silicon. A lot worse. What do you use for modeling on the Mac? I do a bit of a mix of Tinkercad, which is the web app, and then I also do FreeCAD, which is available as a Mac binary. So depending on what I'm modeling and how precise I need to be and the workflow that I want to use, either Tinkercad on web app or FreeCAD as a downloaded app. Those are what I go with. There has to be some trade-offs, like not stackable. Actually, au contraire, the M3 Mac Ultra is stackable with a Thunderbolt cable to combine the unified memory into a terabyte.
Oh.
By the way. I have an M1 Mac Mini, says Andy, debating updating it to an M4, but then maybe some of my workloads, an M4 Mac Studio would be better. By the time I jump to an M4 Pro chip and more RAM, prices are nearly the same. The M4 is about twice as fast as an M2 and about 2.5 times faster than an M1. I had the M1 basic chip, which was the 8 CPU core, 8 GPU core, I believe is what that one was. Which is like 4 performance cores, 4 efficiency cores, and then 8 GPU cores. And I had the 8GB model. I had the base $599 walk into the Apple Store and pick it up model. The newest Mac Mini, the M4, at the same $599 price point, or even $529 with student discount, or $499 if you find it on an even better discount, is the same 256 gigs of storage, but 16 gig of memory, of unified memory, and the same 8 and 8. I think it's 8 and 10 now. It's 8 CPU core and 10 GPU core, if I remember correctly. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I recommend Onshape. I've looked at Onshape before. It's just I haven't worked with it a whole lot. And for what I'm doing, which is a lot of two-dimensional, essentially what ends up being laser cut design, I do more laser cut stuff than I do anything else. And so FreeCAD works out a little bit better for me. But eventually I'm going to have to get into full mechanical design. So yeah, Onshape will probably be in my repertoire before too long, whether I like it or not. Yeah, stackable to a terabyte. Sold, I'm in. Yeah, like Thunderbolt cable between the two. You can unify the memory and you can run a single model on a terabyte system. Like, it's nuts. I currently have a 16 gig model. I regularly see it start to show high memory pressure in activity monitor. Yeah, you could probably go for a RAM upgrade, 24 or 32 gig if you're regularly seeing that. The 8 gig I regularly saw it, but with my workloads on the 16 gig, it's been pretty much flat. Like, I max out between 10 and 12 gig most of the time. Again, I'm not asking a lot of this system, but I really like the workflow. And buy into it or not, Apple is a little bit more efficient with its memory management. It's a lot less bloated operating system. And their ability to derank memory or derank usage in applications or offset them to virtual RAM is pretty unparalleled when it comes to almost every other desktop operating system out there. Is that the same as having 64 gigs of memory? No. But I could run DaVinci Resolve on a 16 gig Mac Mini where I wouldn't even think about doing that on a 64 gig Windows PC as far as memory goes. That actually might be a fun test. Install DaVinci Resolve and edit my next video on my M4 Mac Mini with 16 gigs of VRAM and 8 or 10 cores of GPU accelerate. And see how that does against my 5950X with 128 gigs of RAM with an RTX 5080 on board. And see which one's a better experience. And faster. I bet it's the Mini. I bet it's the Mini. And I'm not a fanboy, but I still bet it's the Mini. This is an interesting one. And that is, speaking of all this AI, local acceleration, local models, etc. Nvidia made an announcement alongside the 5000 series RTX cards that a new API, a new workflow was coming to a lot of game development called Nvidia ACE. Nvidia ACE is designed for game developers to be able to integrate AI accelerated NPCs into gameplay. And I can already feel you pulling back, which is great.
I was like, game development? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I can already feel you pulling back. As do I. Because think of some of the best all-inclusive, open world, open-ended, loose scripted games that you've played. The Fallout New Vegas, the Baldur's Gate 3, the Starfield, basically name a Bethesda RPG and then name anyone else who's done it also slightly better. Your Grand Theft Auto 5, any game with a wide range of dialogue and choices and whatnot. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Let's throw that into the mix. The script for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is longer than War and Peace. The written text-to-speech is longer than War and Peace. NVIDIA ACE is promising to bring AI to life in dynamic ways using LLMs and text-to-speech generation. I can feel you pulling back. Hold with me.
I'm not pulling anywhere, Jeff.
I swear I'm on your side. It is promising to bring a new level of dynamic to non-player characters to in-game dialogue to character direction, motivation, emotion, and speech that has previously not even been possible. And the first game utilizing NVIDIA ACE comes out on Friday, called InZOI. And it's a Sims-style game. It is a life simulation game where you control a character or a series of characters. You help them develop their family. But a lot of the NPCs are using NVIDIA ACE for character backstory, motivation, emotion, situational reaction, and voiceover.
Interesting. It's interesting because I do think that this style of game is the least offensive possible to integrate this tool into.
I agree.
So it threads this like delicate balance where I'm like, on one hand, okay, interesting, like, because I had this whole speech ready about the difference between like curated gameplay versus like even like procedural generated gameplay, which is like the whole focal point of that Morrowind video over on Craft Extra that I did like 2 years ago.
Yes.
But yeah, like I said, this is kind of like the least offensive. I will say, like, I'd be interested to see like how it stacks up against games that have similar ideas. Like, I think instantly about like RimWorld, for example, which is
that's a great example.
It's like a management game, kind of like a sim management, procedurally generated thing. And I've always heard the developers of that game kind of market it as like a procedural story generator, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of sounds a lot like what people want out of like LLM integration into games.
Yeah.
And I think like what they do is that they have all of these big parameters and then they figure out how to like procedurally generate them into like specific characters or specific scenarios or whatever. And so granted, you know, if anybody jumps on the Steam page right now and looks at this game, you know, you're not looking at a very pretty game. You're looking at a very systems heavy game. You're looking at a very detail oriented, menu focused and forward game. But arguably, if you want that in a game, it does it really well.
Yeah.
It does it without AI. So I'm interested to see another example of this too is one of my favorite games is called Wildermyth. God, I said it's one of my favorite games. I can't even remember what it's called. I think it's called Wildermyth or something like that. But
it's okay. I don't even know what game you're talking about.
It's really good, but if you're not, and it's like a strategy kind of turn-based tactics, grid-based game. But a lot of the stories that emerge with your characters in your team are procedurally generated, and you can see the pieces that they kind of plug and play and mix and move around. But it doesn't make it any less fun or interesting or detailed. And like you get a lot of variation. Every time feels new. Every time feels interesting.
Nice.
Whereas like, the story beats are largely the same, but then kind of like the way that it plays out with your team and your characters is unique and interesting.
Yeah.
So again, like they did this idea of this like kind of in-depth, kind of inimitable storyline quality that so many people want out of LLM integration, and did it without AI. So again, I'd just be interested to see what they do with it. Again, I will say they picked the right type of game to like not elicit an automatic knee jerk out of me, right?
Yeah.
Like if you want to talk about integrating it into something like the RPGs, whatever you're mentioning, I push back really hard and say, well, I'm playing these games because I want the curated experience. And arguably the more curated, the better, in my opinion, because you know, I go in depth of this in that video, but I talk a lot about like Skyrim and Oblivion versus Morrowind. And like one of the things that, and don't get me wrong, I love Oblivion, I love Skyrim, but like one of the things that I think you lose a little bit of the touch, the personal touch, is when you're getting these like kind of like random events and things like this that don't quite play out.
Yeah.
Procedurally generated dungeons and things like this, they don't play out quite the same that you get with this like really detailed hand painted, hand laid experience that, you know, and granted, like the dialogue's a little bit different and more when you can make a case that that's not as fun as it is in the other games, and that's totally valid. But like, you know, but then look at like Baldur's Gate, for example. You know, Baldur's Gate does this too, where it's this immaculately detailed, curated experience where, yeah, it's like largely the same many times when you play through it, but that's kind of like the beauty and the fun of it, right? It's kind of this like, it's kind of like this board that's laid out for you fresh every single time, and it's up to your dice rolls and your choices and things to mess with it.
I will say, I don't know offhand exactly where I fall with AI generated content when it comes to gaming integration. And I also don't want the hate for simply not picking a side, because I see a lot of merits on both sides. Speaking strictly to the creativity side of game development, speaking strictly to story writing, dialogue writing, character interaction, character motivation, and the ability for writers to extrapolate every possible situation and emotion and character interaction possible, and then also have voice actors give life to all of those with proper context. It's been a struggle through the years. If we look at games, some of the greatest games that have ever been, quote unquote, put to paper, Fallout New Vegas, Grand Theft Auto 4, enthralling stories, multiple directions you can take it, dynamic character interactions. The problem with both of them is the character dialogue was recorded in studio by someone who goes, yeah, make your character angry this time. I'll fucking kill you right now. And then they go, okay, that's good. And then they pair it with another dialogue who's like a soft-spoken individual. I don't know why we're all getting so upset right now. And you then put those two dialogue choices in a scene together, and the dialogue choices don't match each other. Writing-wise, yes. Character-driven incentive, emotion-wise, no. And part of that's limitations of the technology at the time. Part of that is limitation of file size and scope of development and everything else at the time. But to say Fallout New Vegas always had perfectly curated dialogue. No, you can get into a dialogue tree and get 7 different emotions in 3 different sentences from a character you were talking to. And the same thing in GTA 4, especially if you got off of the main storyline and into some of the side quests and things like that. Let's just say the cinematics weren't so great. Did we hold that against the game? No, because it was still better than anything else that was being done at the time. But it wasn't good. Now imagine...
See, that's why I kind of default. And it's interesting, like, because one of the things about this style of game, I can't even remember the name of the game that's coming out on Friday, but for example, you described it as like a Sims-like game. And like my brain automatically went to Sims 2, which is like one of my favorite games ever. And one of the great things about Sims 2 is like there's not a line of dialogue in this game at all. There's not, the Sims doesn't need dialogue. They speak Simese or whatever the hell they talk about, right?
Yeah.
And that game is like no less deep because of this. And so when when they're saying like, oh well, we've got LLMs to do this Sim style game where all of the backstory is like AI, I'm like, okay, AI backstory, that's kind of interesting, reminds me of RimWorld. And then like, oh, and like the dialogue, and I'm like, well, like Sims didn't need dialogue, and that game's, you know, how many units did Sims 2 sell? And it's good. How many hours did I put into Sims 2? Probably just as many as I put into some of my other favorite games of all time.
Yeah.
Like, and
if we move this conversation forward to Baldur's Gate 3, this is since the InZOI, that's the name of the game, news has come out. Was it Samantha? The voice actor for Karlach has come out.
When we're talking voice actors, Karlach was the one I was thinking of. I was like, well.
Vehemently in protest, and this is against everything I stand for. And for the most part, I agree. For the most part, if you are replacing a human actor with an AI, It's a slap in the face to creative professionals, to actors, to voice actors, to professional creatives across the board. Part of me also sees some creative avenue within the AI, though, that wouldn't be possible without it. Because as a writer, let's say on Karlach for a second, you could give Karlach some written motivations for certain decisions. But as those circumstances change in your gameplay, so too could the motivations and emotions and emotional state of Karlach, the character, which means the voice that you would have recorded would need, 7 different iterations to convey the emotion on screen properly. And would you rather pay an actor to convey 7 different emotions for a single line of dialogue, depending on which character choices they made in Act 1? Or would you rather have that be a little bit more dynamic? And I see the voice actor piece completely, because one of my favorite professions is voice acting. I follow so many voice actors on social media. I love every episode of Twisted Tunes that's ever been released. I love voice acting as a profession. I understand the work and the love and care that goes into curating characters.
I think that there's just another side of it too, though, where voice acting and all of that is just like, how many games have voice acting? If every game that's released on Steam every day, how many of them have voice acting?
4.
Right, and it's like, and I don't want to take away from it because like Baldur's Gate is amazing. Red Dead Redemption 2 has some of my favorite performances of all time.
Yeah.
Hellblade,
GTA 5 is another one that has some amazing voice acting.
I don't want to take away from that, but it's like video games using voice acting is like not the only way that video games are made.
Yeah.
Video games having like a million choices or whatever isn't the only way that games are made. And I think that like I can see the point where if the end game of video games is to create like Ultra Skyrim or whatever, where it's like real life the simulator, then like LLMs like fit really perfectly into that idea.
One of the most popular mods on Skyrim is integrating an LLM and a speech to text and a text to speech to deliver to the NPCs exactly what we're talking about here. The NPCs are aware of the in-game world. They're aware of events that are taking place. They're aware of their daily lives. You can ask them questions on what they observed within different regions, and they can answer you based on whether or not they witnessed a dragon attack or not. They remember conversations they had with you and can answer based on how you've interacted with them in the past and what they think about you as a person. And all of these are voiced by AI in real time in response to real questions that you're asking a character within a video game.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, the 7 voice actors of Skyrim just aren't able to convey that level of detail.
Bethesda's always had like irritatingly like shallow voice acting anyways, right? Like Bethesda's famous for like, I took an arrow in the knee, like, and so right. I'm not saying
it's very surface level voice acting. It's very shallow voice acting where you have the same person voicing 100 characters in a game. And 50% of the NPCs you meet are one of 3 voice actors. Yeah. And the main antagonist and the main protagonist have the same voice actor.
And it's funny coming from me, the guy who's like, stick shift in an EV is like a fun toy, to like be kind of like, yucking the idea of like a fun toy within a fun toy, right?
Right.
But when you're describing to me this idea of like, using this mod in Skyrim, I'm like, but you can have that experience just like logging in to ChatGPT and like be like, pretend you're a Skyrim NPC, and you can have that,
But it's not in a game experience. And it's non-consequential.
I know. Yeah, I know. It's not. Yeah, I know. And it's a toy within a toy, and I get it. you know. But it's interesting because I think that it just I guess like the point ultimately is that like NZOI, it sounds like an interesting integration. But when the conversation becomes focused on like, well, this is how games are made or whatever, I like to push back on it because there's a lot of reasons why games are made and there's a lot of ways games are made. And we talk about how big the scripts are and things like that. It's like one of my favorite games is Disco Elysium, which the amount of text, dialogue, words in that game is like twice as big as like some of the longest novels ever written. And it's up, and they managed to go through that game and do voice acting for the entirety of the game. But the voice acting in that game isn't necessarily to convey a difference in emotional reactions. It's just to capture the vibe and the mood and the things just like that they do.
Right.
Just to say the line. And now the voice acting is top notch voice acting. But it's more akin to like an audiobook in that way.
Right. And we run into this a lot in games, especially super dynamic character driven narratives like Baldur's Gate and Red Dead Redemption, where you choose a particular play style or a particular mood for the conversation that you're having, and let's go Baldur's Gate and let's go Fallout. Let's go Fallout 4 for the two examples, because you're given kind of black and white. Ask the character that you're talking to this, or tell the character that you're talking to this. And the character will respond with whatever their emotional cue is, whether they love your question or they hate your question, or they love you as a person or they hate you as a person. And so you'll click on a seemingly innocuous dialogue choice, and excuse me, Lizelle will go, "You iftic, I would never think of sullying myself to such a level," and she'll speak with like this utter disgust and disdain for your character and what they just said. And then you go, "I'm sorry, I didn't."
That's just Lizelle.
And then you go, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it." And she goes, "I will meet you in your bunk later for intercourse," or what, and so she'll switch on a dime. And that's not what characters do. But it's a limitation of the voice acting system. And you can only record so many emotions and then replay them based on prompts.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I bring up the idea that it's like there's so many games that are hugely successful, and Disco Elysium is one of them, where it's like I don't think that the performances or the writing or the storyline of the game is dependent on the voice acting at all, because the voice acting is largely just narration of the game. Where it's like there's other ways of doing it that I think, I guess in those regards, these aren't the ones that need these LLMs to guide the play or whatever.
Right.
I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum, but to me, it's just like the AI thing is just like, it seems to be like a slightly more palatable version of like NFTs in a way, right? It's like, not that they're the identical concepts, but it's like, here's another way of like integrating something that like we don't need, into these things. And I don't know, I guess for me personally, I like the idea when you tell me that there's like a mod in Skyrim where I can go and chit chat with it. It's like, that sounds fun and interesting, but it's like, I also like the idea of interacting with something that somebody made and that there's like an intention behind it. Totally. It's like
curated versus randomly generated. Everyone can always see straight through,
that's the bell that I keep banging on. And it's not the only way to be, right? It's not the only way to enjoy something, right? But it's what makes movies so interesting.
Right. 2 weeks ago, I had Will Smith on the channel, and we talked about specifically this when it comes to random generation in games and using curation within that. The developer Streets of Rogue 2 did a dev vlog of going into like extreme detail of how he curates individual buildings, but then generates a heat map for the random generation and has an algorithm on where he should put those buildings to make sense within the game world. So the game world feels on purpose, built by a person. You go to a specific place for a specific reason, and it's not like a single building with 4 rooms inside that make absolutely no sense. Like,
right, yeah.
The apartment still has a bathroom and a kitchen. It's not 7 kitchens and 1 bedroom and 9 people living there. Right. And you can tell the difference.
Which is like the problem that like Starfield ran into, right?
Absolutely.
That's what everybody said. Yeah.
Yeah. You can tell the difference between curation made with intention, dare I say the namesake of my channel, craft.
Yeah.
Made with intention is the definition I love for craft, and it's one of the main reasons I chose it for craft computing.
I like that.
And simply randomly generated placeholders for I hope you find this interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, you know, and I guess there's a lot of ways to look at the way to make games, and I don't want to necessarily obstruct, you know, anybody from going out and making games the way that they want to make them. I just think that what people really want from games is like that more like human connection a little bit, you know, but
yeah.
Maybe I'm just idealistic. Maybe I'm just viewing the world through like the lens of my own sort of perspective or whatever. But
totally,
you know, it's like if I went to a museum or whatever, and it's like I'd want to look at paintings painted by a person, you know, and get a glimpse of like what they're feeling or thinking at any moment in time, not just like an assortment of pixels like that were pre-selected based on on what it thinks I expect to see, you know. But I don't know. I've obviously for a long time on this show been hesitant and skeptical about like what this technology is going to be and be used for. And I'll happily, you know, eat crow if it turns out to be, you know, something.
I think it kind of comes back down to the artistic direction of a project and the artistic intention of a project, because at the end of the day, a lot of game designers, most game designers, are trying to make the most engaging, immersive worlds possible. They're trying to immerse you in whatever story or narrative or environment mechanic that they're trying to sell. And I don't outwardly reject the use of AI as uncreative. And I know that elicits a knee-jerk reaction from people within the industry, from voice actors, from game developers, from story writers, from everyone else. But you have to hear me out on the second part, because AI at this point is simply a tool set. And it can be used in a cookie-cutter fashion, or it can be used in a very creative and intentional fashion. Just because you have an NPC that inside of Skyrim would have 3 spoken lines. Beautiful day today. I hope the dragons don't descend on us. Have you been to the local meadery? Like, if you've ever pressed E on a random NPC in Skyrim, you get that kind of crap.
Yeah.
If you could, as a game writer, give an NPC a basic history within the world. This NPC is a 3rd-generation farmer who creates his own mead and travels between Morrowind and Morthal on a caravan route, and has interactions with these 3 different tribes, and has these 3 feelings about these 3 different tribes, and witnessed the events at Marketh to start out your journey, was witness to the dragon attack at Helgen, and ran back home and is now only staying at home, and his business is suffering because of this, and has a wife who you have 3 children together, but one of them died at age 3. And you give this character that motivation simply in writing, and tell it within our universe, give this character motivation and a voice. Is that no less creative than writing an entire narrative for that character?
No. My only thing I'd say against that is like, does your game need that? You know, when you said that like AI is a tool and you wouldn't begrudge anybody using it or whatever, and it's no less creative. And it's like, I agree with you to a point, but then my counter to that is like, but if you're using it for these things, do you need it? What kind of game can you make, or what kind of story can you tell without that? And I really like when you're painting that picture of that character in this in this Elder Scrolls game, I'm thinking to myself like,
damn, do you get up to the Cloud District often?
It sounds really fascinating when you put it that way, but then my natural reaction is like, I fell in love with this series based on a game that had text windows where there was almost no distinct dialogue,
and no text to speech to speak
right of. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm not saying that that's not an interesting idea, and I wouldn't like to see it integrated, but to me the question is like, make a game like, what do they say, constraint is the mother of innovation or whatever, constraint. Yeah. I don't know what they say. It's something like that. And I kind of live my creative life by that mantra a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But again, the motivations you give that character, they sound fascinating. They sound interesting, and it would be interesting to see how that you almost described a whole game in and of itself with just like one character.
Right. And so all I did was call back to like lore that I know of Skyrim. Right. I mentioned like 4 locations and a profession. Right. And all of a sudden this character has meaning and impetus within the world. And you could meet this character, and maybe they dynamically generate a quest to help bury their 3rd son or something like that. Or, and I'm not saying these would necessarily be like worthwhile inclusions in a game. But at the same time, if you could give a character motivation or insight knowledge into a quest that you curated in a game, if you could give them, through my travels, I did spy a cave with a whole bunch of bandits lurking, and they seem to be very protective of something in that region. I don't know if it's a secret entrance into the city. I don't know if it's you don't necessarily even need to like fully voice or dialogue or write that. You could simply give a character motivation to open up more stories and more angles for a character to experience the world.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's good, and I'm not saying that cutting voice actors out of the equation entirely is the way to go. What I'm saying is, if you can give some simpler characters more motivation within a world that they live in. We just witnessed a town burn down, and I'm gonna go, how's it hanging? Like, that's your default dialogue choice for that circumstance? You know? And yeah, maybe 98% of the dialogue goes nowhere, because I, as an adventurer, walked up to a random farmer and asked him, how's it hanging? After his town was burned to the ground, and he goes, it's awful. Everything I know and everyone I've ever loved is dead. I watched them burn in front of my eyes. I've never known such hell. I wish to take my own life, if not for the and
well, have a good one.
Right.
See you later.
Is that still not more entrenching and more involving in a story than I witnessed the dragon's fire at Helgen, and I never wish to see such fury again? For the 98th time that you've asked a farmer a question.
Yeah. And and also, though, we are holding Skyrim as like the pinnacle of this type of gameplay, and the game is 15 years old now, so
don't
we should have never went this long without another Elder Scrolls game, but here we are.
But yeah,
there was less time between Morrowind and Skyrim than between Skyrim and now.
I know.
It was only 9 years.
But yeah, I mean, all that to say, as with a lot of opinions on this channel, it's delivered with nuance.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't ever have voice actors in your game again. Go full bore AI and screw the voice actors.
Anybody who's watched the show knows how much you appreciate a good voice actor, so.
Yes.
Yeah. No, you're a tech enthusiast. You want to see how these things can be used, democratize them, get them out there, and let's see what people can use it for.
As myself, a creative professional, is there not a use case that you can find that could take advantage of this new tech that could help you as a fellow creative professional tell a better story, write a better game, create better visuals?
Yeah, be interesting.
Yes, there is.
Well, we'll have to see for ourselves on Friday.
Yeah. I am curious to see this game in action. I've got it on my wish list.
It's the right kind of game to use this, I think.
If ever there was going to be a dynamic AI NPC run wild, I think a Sims game is the perfect game to put it in.
Yeah, I think so too.
To test my resolve.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah. It is 8:33.
And I have to go pee.
I figured you did.
So bad. 7:45. Dude, it was like magic. 7:45 came around. I was like, I shouldn't have said that number. Yeah.
Tank is full. I will say I did a 3-hour stream with Ian, and towards the end of the stream, like 2 hours and 50 minutes in, I wrote in bold text on my laptop screen, bladder full, and pivoted it towards Ian. And he started wrapping things up. Anyway, this has been episode 375 of Talking Heads. Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news. Hit us up on the replay on Spotify or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. Get some merch. Go buy something, will ya? Support the channel, craftcomputing.store, if you're looking for beer glasses, coasters, whiskey stones, all kinds of barware and drinking accessories. Or OpenViro, my latest endeavor, which is a rack mount temperature sensor. Check it out at openviro.com or over on Crowd Supply. Subscribe to the Crowd Supply page and get updates as soon as it is available for pre-order.
Oh yeah.
Rett, anything go to the order before we close?
I got a couple things in the pipeline.
Sure.
My indie folk band, the Marionberries, we're coming out with a short EP here really soon in the next few weeks. I also just sold another Sword and Sorcery short story for fans of Michael Moorcock and Robert E. Howard. So
nice.
The best place you probably find me posting about this stuff on Bluesky when that comes out. But like also I'm posting constant updates on my Ko-Fi blog at ko-fi.com/Rett is awesome. Don't buy me a coffee if you don't want, but just like check out the
buy him
things
a
I'm
coffee.
posting there. Or buy me a coffee, but I'm just constantly posting updates there now.
Ko-Fi/Rett is awesome. RETT,
yeah.
not an H. He doesn't need that artificial inflation in there.
No. That's my ChatGPT name is with an H.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise I've got a story coming out pretty soon. I've got the EP, and then I guess that's really about it.
Sweet.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news right here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, join the Patreon, get access to the exclusive Discord server where you can chat with myself, John, Rett, Steve, all the hosts from Talking Heads. And as always, we'll see you next week.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.